Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. As you all know already, I'm a huge Broadway fan. I've seen countless shows and talked about a handful here on this channel. Of all of those shows, my favorite above and beyond has been Hadestown. This show masterfully weaves Greek myth and song, tickling the nerd part of my brain. When I made my last video, I had seen the non-equity tour and a dozen slime tutorials of the original Broadway cast. Since then, a friend and I managed to take a quick trip to NYC to see the newest cast of Hadestown, starring Jack Wolfe, Morgan Dudley, Kurt Elling, Rebecca Naomi Jones, and Paulo Szot. Of course, I had to see this cast for myself since I was familiar with Jack Wolfe from the PBS Next to Normal Pro Shot last summer, and Morgan Dudley from Descendants, The Rise of Red. Now, every version of Hadestown cast has brought something new to the show. However, this cast is something different and potentially the best replacement cast the show has ever seen. Each member of the cast brings something new and exciting to their role, and I wanted to share it with you today. So let's get into it. First up, I want to talk about the member of the cast that I see talked about maybe the least on social media, and that's Paul Szot as Hades. Szot is a Tony Award-winning baritone who has stepped into the role of Hades for this production. Now, I am no expert when it comes to music. I'm not going to pretend I am. However, I am aware that Hades is traditionally a role played by a bass singer. Both Patrick Page from the original Broadway cast and Nicholas Cologne from the national tour both serve as basses for Hades. It gives them that much lower register that gives Hades that more refined or angrier, aggressive sound. Patrick Page plays an older, more refined Hades with his deeper voice, while Nicholas Cologne plays him younger and angrier. Here, I feel Paulo lands somewhere in the middle as a baritone and is having a lot of fun with it. His Hades seems more relaxed and playful, a little more witty and sarcastic than the others did.
Hades was king of the underworld. Oh, it's about me.
Additionally, Hades has always been a bit of a speak-singing role because of Patrick Page's performance, and I think Paulo slides into that well, especially using his Portuguese accent. I love when an actor is allowed to keep their original accent for a performance, because for a character like Hades, who's to say he doesn't speak with a Portuguese accent? And so I think Paulo brings something new and fun to this role, where he is a middle-aged Hades who is having fun with this whole situation. For example, during my showing, Paulo does not shake Jack Wolfe's hand during the Wait For Me reprise. Instead, he fakes him out and then slicks back his hair, which, again, I feel might have been out of character for Patrick Page's Hades, while this version is, again, more playful, more sarcastic. He really does a lot more face acting, and overall just brings new life to the character in a new way that I'm excited to see. Accompanying Hades is, of course, Rebecca Naomi Jones as Persephone. While Amber Gray is the OG, I feel that Rebecca adds new layers to Persephone in this performance. I found her way more witty and sarcastic, and maybe even angrier in this version. And I think a lot of this has to do with her body language. Like, for example, she is constantly shooting dirty looks at Hades when his back is turned. On top of that, I think she is also the first Persephone I've seen where I would truly believe she is actually drunk on stage as Persephone is meant to be. If you haven't seen it yet, leave now to avoid any kind of spoilers, but her performance during Our Lady of the Underground is crazy. In this role, each Persephone gets to kind of interpret their own dance for this sequence, and I thought hers was ridiculous in the best way, and she was having fun. I can also acknowledge maybe I'm a little biased because we sat front row and she personally sung to me during this sequence, to which I was personally flabbergasted and didn't want to interrupt her performance, so just sat there smiling. The next member of this cast is Kurt Elling as Hermes, and we didn't actually see him in person, but I've watched the slime tutorials and seen the TikToks. He seems like a more cutthroat, matter-of-fact version of the character, but again, he was not present for our showing. Instead, we had Eddie Rodriguez as the understudy. And this was cool because Rodriguez was actually the Hermes on the national tour, and now he serves as a Broadway swing. And this is where, while I love Andre de Shields as the original Hermes, I do like what younger actors bring to the role. You see, Andre is mostly speak singing throughout his role, while a lot of younger Hermes tend to actually sing the part and get really into it. And I think Rodriguez brings a lot of great high energy to the performance. Next up, we of course have our leading lady, Morgan Dudley, as Eurydice. This is Morgan's Broadway debut, and let me just say, she was being wasted in those Descendants movies, and I hope to see her in more projects on Broadway soon. While of course Ava Noblezada is the original Eurydice, her Eurydice seems like a more gentle, helpless, and in need version of the character, which is not a bad thing. It is the original version of the role. However, I think Morgan elevates this role as a force that demands your attention on stage. She's vulnerable but powerful. As every Eurydice does, there's of course the stage jump onto the turntable during Wait For Me reprise, and I just have to say I think Morgan's is one of the best. She has that deep guttural sound that she's bringing up to show that this version of Eurydice really means it. I truly believe this version loves Orpheus. And I think that is helped by, as I have said for every member of this cast, her body language. She has many subtle facial expressions that really show that she loves Orpheus. You can see the love in her eyes, and you can see her distrust or concern with the state of the world due to Hades and Persephone's relationship. On top of that, I just wanted to take a moment because Morgan has touched on via her TikTok that she has a medical condition that causes her difficulties during the show, and she feels self-conscious about that. And can I just say, Morgan, trust me, it does not make any negative impact on the show. Your performance is beautiful throughout the entire thing. The last member of this cast obviously needs no introduction, as we have Jack Wolfe as Orpheus. I don't think this casting could have possibly come at a better time. After Jack Wolfe took over the internet, took over TikTok and YouTube with the Next to Normal Pro shot, he was then cast in the lead role here as Orpheus. And Reeve Carney will always be the OG Orpheus. However, I prefer a softer, more insecure Orpheus. Like, I'm sorry, I mean no offense to Mr. Fisher when I say this, but Jordan Fisher's Orpheus never worked for me. He was too confident, when I think Orpheus should be soft and shy, which is exactly what Jack Wolfe embodies. He is Orpheus. At the beginning of the show, he starts off soft and shy, but then Eurydice starts to bring out that careful and loving part of him, before he has his spark of hope guiding him into Act 2. And like I said, as I keep saying for each of these actors, the body language really helps for this performance. You see in Jack's eyes his concern, either his fear, his love, his hatred. His subtle facial expressions really tell you the story that's going on. I also like the way his entire body changes. At the beginning of the show, he's nervous and he carries himself with his slouched shoulders and he keeps his limbs in tight. Versus in Act 2, he's spread out more, he's taller, he's standing up straight. And what's there to say about this guy's voice that hasn't already been said? He is a powerhouse when it comes to his ability to sing epic.
The gods sang a song of love.
His voice is beautiful and of course carries both those two very heavy songs of Wait For Me and Epic. And I love that he has his British accent.
Love when I sing my song, all the rivers will sing along, and they're gonna break their banks for us, and with their gold be generous.
It's not as prominent as Paulo's Portuguese accent, but it is still there. I think he is trying to cover it, but I would recommend let it show more. Alongside Jack Wolfe's performance, I fully buy into the theory that partway through the story, he knows this has happened before. You can see it in his eyes and the looks that he gives these characters as the second act of the story plays out. And I think that's also why he gains more confidence in the second act, because he believes that this time it will be different. And therefore, the ending is so much more tragic when the story has to repeat itself and he still fails to save Eurydice. I've never been one to theorize about Broadway shows like this because I personally believe that the creatives behind the show would not allow an actor to change the meaning of a show that much. But here with Jack Wolfe, again, I believe it in the way he looks at Eurydice, the way he speaks to Hades, the way he puts his body into it when singing these songs. And overall, I do believe the idea that Jack Wolfe's Orpheus knows and is trying to change the story. But ultimately, as we know from the myth, he cannot change what is going to happen, and they can simply sing it again. So in total, all these new performances elevate the show to a new level. For example, I fully buy into the theory that Jack Wolfe's Orpheus knows what's going on. I think Morgan Dudley's Eurydice is a force to be reckoned with. I thought Eddie Rodriguez brought a lot of high energy to the role of Hermes. And I fully believe Rebecca Naomi Jones as Persephone is drunk, but also still witty and sarcastic enough to handle Hades herself. And of course, Paulo Szot played Hades more relaxed and having fun with the whole scenario. When put together, all of these new performances create something unique that other casts of the show have not. And while I know we don't do it for every cast, I truly do think that the production company behind Hadestown should look into doing a studio recording or even just a single for this cast. Obviously, we have slime tutorials and their Broadway on the radio interviews. However, that does not replace an official studio recording. But that's just wishful thinking. Since seeing the show and writing this video, we know that this entire cast is leaving at the end of February, so if you have time, I strongly encourage you to find a way to go see them. And once they're finished with this, I hope to see this cast thrive and prosper in future Broadway projects. But those again are just my thoughts and opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below. I love talking about Hadestown and would love to talk about it with all of you. If you liked what you saw here and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when the next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.